Okay, today we're going to be taking some notes on reading and analyzing graphs. Okay, I'm going to put a couple definitions here for bar graph and double bar graph. I want you to write them down. You can pause your video and take a few minutes to write them down, and then go ahead and resume, and we'll do some practice problems. Okay, the first kind of graph is a bar graph. That's a graph that uses horizontal or vertical bars to display data in order to compare quantities. These are the ones you're familiar with. They have the bars that go up and down, and between bars there should be a space. You're going to have a title, you're going to have labels, you're going to have the bars themselves, which show the facts, grid lines, and then there's going to be categories on the page. Okay, the second type that we're going to talk about is the double bar graph. And here's the definition for the double bar graph. And that's a graph using two sets of bars to compare two types of related data. Go ahead and pause and go ahead and write these down. All right, let's go ahead and take a look at our first example, example 1. We're going to look at the first graph here, and this first graph here is the single bar graph. And if you notice, it has a title, fat content of a sub sandwich. It has the subjects, and this is a horizontal. You see how the bars are going horizontally? It has the bread, ham, turkey, cheese, and mayo, all the ingredients on our sub sandwich. And across the bottom, it has our numbers. It's going up by 2s. If you notice, it's going up by 2s. All right, so we are going to answer these questions on the right. The first question is, how many more grams of fat are in ham than turkey? So the first thing we want to notice is it says more grams. So let's go ahead and see how many grams first that we have in ham. So if we go over to ham and we go ahead and go down, we see that there are 6 grams. So let's go ahead and put our 6 down. Now the next thing they want to do, we did the ham, is see how many are in turkey. So go over to your turkey. Now if we go down, we notice that it's right between the 2 and the 4, which would give us a 3. So turkey has 3. So in order to find out how many more we have in ham, we just go ahead and subtract. 6 minus 3 is 3. So there's 3 grams difference between the two. All right, so let's look at the next question. How many total fat grams are in the sandwich? Okay, so they're asking us total fat grams. So for the whole sandwich, if we want to find out how much is in the whole thing, total means adding. So we're going to have to add all the fat grams together. So let's go, we'll just go one step at a time. Bread. If we go down here, we'll see bread is between 0 and 2, and that would be 1. 1 plus ham, we already said had 6, plus the turkey, we already said had 3. The cheese has a whopping 9. That's between 8 and 10. And finally, our mayonnaise. Now here's 10, so it's right in between that 10. And we don't see 11, but 12, but we imagine there's 12 right here. So in between these two. Now when we add those all together, you can use your calculator, or you could try to do it in your head. And we get 7, 10, 19, and 11 is 30 grams. Yikes. Okay, so there's 30 grams in our whole sandwich. Okay, our last question for this one. What percent of the total fat grams in this sandwich are from turkey? So we need to know 2 things here. Our total fat grams, and what did we say that was? 30 grams. Now we want to know how many of this total is from turkey. So what did we say our turkey was? 3. Okay, so we're going to take that 3 and see how much of that is out of 30. So 3 out of 30. Okay, so you can do this 3 divided by 30. Okay, so if you use your calculator, 3 divided by 30 is going to get you 0.10. Okay, and that's a decimal. 0.10 is the same as 10 100ths. So if you multiply this by times 100, you will get 10, and that's 10%. Okay, you might have learned another trick when you were younger, that you could take 0.10, okay, and your teacher might have told you, if you want to find the percent, just take this and move it over twice. And now you have 10%. Okay? That's another way you could do it. All right, let's go to our next section, and this is where we find our double bar graph. Okay, so each one of these subjects down on the bottom, 2000, 2010, 2001, they each have 2 bar graphs. But if you notice, they're different shades here. This is black and white. If it was in color, one would be red and one would be orange or some other colors. All right, so also another difference, it does have the title, it has everything else the same as our single bar graph, but it also includes a key. So you know each one of these represents something different. So in this case, football is the darker color and basketball is the lighter color. Also, if you look on the side here, it says sports attendance at a state college. It's also telling you that you have, these are in thousands. So I want you to go ahead and try this one on your own. Okay, so here are the answers to the you try question. And so just remember that bar graphs are useful for comparing facts, and they provide a nice visual display for comparing quantities in different categories. All right, so the next part we're going to look at is line graphs. And here are 2 definitions. So go ahead and you can hit pause and write down the definition. We have a line graph, and then we have a double line graph. A line graph is a graph that uses line segments to connect data points and show changes in data over a period of time. And a double line graph is a line graph with 2 lines, a graph that compares 2 different subjects over a period of time. All right, let's look at our first line graph in example 2. All right, so this is just a single line graph, and it's temperatures in one day. Okay, we're following the temperatures of one day. And if we notice the temperature increasing by 20 degrees each time here. And on the bottom, we have a range from midnight to 4 a.m., 4 a.m. to 8 a.m., and so forth. So in increments of 4 hours, the time. Okay, this is good for showing a trend. Line graphs are good for showing a trend. Okay, so we're going to follow this and see how the temperature goes throughout one day. So the first question is, at what time was the temperature the warmest? Okay, so let's follow the line going across. And we're going to look for the highest point. So we see the highest point is right here. And if we follow that down, that would be 4 p.m. Okay, so we're going to write down 4 p.m. Okay, the next question, during which 4-hour time period did the temperature increase the most? Okay, so we're going to look for our lines, so we're going to go through each 4-hour period. One way to really check that is to look and see which one of these lines from one point to the other is the steepest. Okay, so if we look here and we compare it to this one, to this one, to this one. Now remember, increasing your line will be going up instead of down. So let's look here. If I look at this one, so it would be between 4 a.m. and 8 a.m. and 8 a.m. and noon. If I look here, we can look at the steepness of this one. It seems greater than the steepness of this one. Okay, and we can also check by looking at the time. The temperature increase. From here to here, it looks like we went up roughly from 62 to about 70, maybe a little over 70. And from here we went from 70 to a little over 80, so maybe about 10 degrees here. So this one would be our biggest jump. So from 8 a.m. to noon. So from 8 a.m. to noon. Oops, not noon, noon. All right, next one. What was the average temperature? Okay, so to find an average, you learned earlier, we have to add up all the temperatures and divide by the number. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So let's add them up. Now, your number might not be exactly the same as somebody else's because we're kind of, you know, eyeballing it a little bit, but we're going to take an educated guess here. So the first temperature is not quite at 60, but pretty close. So maybe we'll say it's 59. Second one, it's a little above 80, or what is it, 60, maybe 62. 8 a.m., we're going to go right in the middle there. Why don't we say 70? Here it looks like it's on the 80. At noon, at 4 p.m., it's a little above. Let's say it's 82. And finally, we're back down to 80. Okay, and we're going to divide all that by 6. Okay, so if we add all those together, we get 433, and we're going to divide that by 6. And we get, if we divide that by 6, we get about 72. I'm going to round it down again. So we get about 72 degrees. And like I said, your numbers might be just a little bit different than mine. All right, the next one you are going to try yourself. So go ahead and try where it says you try B. Go ahead and hit pause. Okay, we're back, and you should have gotten these answers right here. Now, it might be a little bit difficult to see on your paper, but if you follow, station A has the diamonds and station B has the circles. So that might help you find yours a little bit better if you were having trouble. Okay, so the next thing that we're going to go on to is the circle graphs. Okay, circle graphs, or sometimes they're called pie graphs. Okay, so they're divided up into a circle, or what some people call the pie. And it's a type of statistical graph used to compare parts of a whole. So if you think of it as a circle, and if the whole circle is filled in, that would equal up to 100%. Okay, so if this whole thing was filled, that would be 100%. Okay, so different parts of it would represent different percentages. All right, so let's go to our circle graphs. Okay, our first question, our first graph is a fruit salad recipe. Okay, so they're calling for different parts of our fruit salad. So let's just go ahead and look at this. Which two fruits together make up half of the fruit salad? Okay, so if we kind of look at this, like I said, half of your salad would be half of the circle filled. So we could kind of look at it, and if we look right here, we divide our circle in half, it looks like these two ingredients right here would make up half of our circle. And that is our bananas and strawberries. All right, so the next question is, which fruit is used more than any other? So if we look at all of our ingredients together, we have little slices, These are half, so half and half, half of a half if it's a quarter and a quarter. But if you look at this one right here, this takes up more than a quarter, which would be more than each one of these. And that is, let's put this in a different color. That is our cantaloupe. You see how that's a bigger slice of our pie. So cantaloupe is actually the biggest portion of this circle graph. And if we were to do percentages, you would see that this percentage is more than these two separately. All right, so we have, you are going to try B by yourself and see if you can figure it out. Remember, a whole circle is 100%, so that should help you when you try B by yourself. Go ahead. Okay, here's the answers to the you try. Okay, if we noticed, they say which movie is the most popular. And we look and we see Pinocchio takes up the biggest chunk. Which movie was the least popular? Is it Frozen? Yeah, Frozen only had 10%. Okay, it has the smallest pie slice. What percent of people said Pinocchio was their favorite? Okay, they did not have a percentage here, did they? Okay, so remember what I told you. 100% is this whole thing filled up. Okay, so if we took all the parts and we added them together, the percentages we had, it would equal 72. So I took 100, which was 100%, minus 72, that would leave us with 28% left over, okay? And that's where we got the 28. So what percentage of people said either Pinocchio or Cars was their favorite? We add 28 plus the Cars, and we get 39%. Which two movies did about half of the people say was their favorite? So if we look at this here, half of this circle would be Toy Story and Pinocchio. We could just eyeball that. I mean, we could add them together, but two of these together, we could just see would be Pinocchio and Toy Story. Okay, the last one is where people have a little bit of confusion. Okay, if a total of 200 people were surveyed, how many liked The Lion King? Okay, so your total amount of people is 200. Okay, so what we want to do is look at Lion King, 15%. Let's convert that to a decimal, 0.15. If we multiply that by the total amount of people that were surveyed, you would get 30. 15% of 200 is 30 people. And that's how you find your answer. Okay, the rest of it is for you to practice on your own.